Okay, so let's get right into it. Today we're tackling a massive idea: the huge difference between just being remembered and creating a legacy that actually lasts. We're going to shift our thinking from the performance of the living to the persistence of a system, from the breath to the blueprint.
Man, this really hits hard, doesn't it? I mean, we've all been sold this fantasy that fame is basically a form of immortality. If you can just rack up enough likes, enough followers, enough people who know your name, you've somehow cheated death. But the source material is brutally honest about this. Fame is not immortality. It's just a data echo, a really shallow signal that just vanishes the second people stop paying attention.
So this is the core distinction we have to understand. On one side, you've got fame. That's the data echo. It's fragile. It needs constant attention, constant validation. But on the other side, you have legacy. And this isn't about people remembering you fondly. The source calls it a logic, a system, a set of rules so solid that it just keeps running long after its creator is gone.
And that leads us right into what this material calls the vanity trap. The argument is that most of us, right now, are building these incredible, intricate digital sandcastles. We think they're permanent, but we're building them right where the digital tide is going to come in and wash them all away.
Now get this. This is how the source reframes our entire online life. We think we're carving out this permanent identity, but to the system, we're just a biological variable, a temporary piece of data. The second our heart stops, our digital identity, all those posts, all those pictures, all those carefully crafted thoughts, it gets liquidated. It's a harsh way to put it, but it's a really powerful idea.
And this is the end result of that vanity trap, a data mausoleum. You've built this giant digital monument to your own presence. It's filled with everything you've ever created. But here's the thing, it's a monument nobody ever visits. It has no real power because it doesn't do anything. It's just an archive sitting there waiting for the server to be shut down.
So how do we end up building these things? By falling into the mirror trap. We start just reflecting what the algorithm wants to see, just so we can stay relevant. We start to mistake being seen for being permanent. You can be a huge influencer, you can generate mountains of data, but if you haven't built a set of instructions that can operate without you, at the end of the day, it's all for nothing.
Okay, so how do we escape this? Well, you have to become what the source calls a sovereign architect. This is about a complete shift in focus, moving away from your personal ego and towards an impersonal but incredibly powerful protocol. See, the goal isn't to be remembered, it's to become inevitable.
This is the absolute fundamental mindset shift you have to make. Your life, well, that's a collection of events and memories. But your legacy, that has to be a collection of instructions. When you can actually codify your wisdom into a protocol, you stop being just a person. You become a kind of neural operating system, a framework that keeps shaping reality all on its own.
And believe it or not, the source material actually formalizes this with an equation. Now I know, it looks complex, but stick with me. This is basically a formula for creating a system that can withstand the test of time. It's a way to engineer a legacy that bypasses the natural decay of memory and data.
Let's just break this down real quick. So legacy persistence, that's LP, is all about a few key things. You've got systemic quality, basically how solid is your idea. Then neural resonance. Does it actually connect with people on a deep level? And then there's this one, complexity of absence. Think of it like this: how big of a hole would be left if your system just disappeared tomorrow? That's its power. And all of this is in a constant battle against entropy, the natural tendency for everything to fall apart.
But the most critical piece of that puzzle, the one you have to focus on, is SQ, the systemic quality. If your ideas are fragile, if they rely on you, your charisma, your constant effort to keep them alive, well, your legacy persistence is going to drop to zero the second you're gone. The whole goal is to build a sovereign system, one that provides its own energy, long after you've stopped pushing it.
All right, so let's get practical. How do you actually do this? The source lays out what it calls the ghost protocol. It's a blueprint for becoming a sovereign ghost, which is just a cool way of saying a self-sustaining information structure, a logic that other people host in their own minds, but that stays completely true to your original intent.
And it boils down to 3 core steps. First, depersonalization. You have to strip your wisdom of you. Turn your personal insights into a cold, repeatable process that anyone could follow, without even knowing your name. Second, autocatalytic architecture. You have to design the system so it fuels and scales itself. And third, and this one's key, the strategic absence. You have to test it. You have to step away. If it keeps working without you, then you know you've done it. You've successfully decoupled your will from your body.
So when you follow this protocol, what's the end game? What's the final state you achieve? It's what the source calls systemic immortality. Or, to put it another way, you literally become the gravity that dictates how the future gets built in whatever field you're in.
I absolutely love this metaphor. It just perfectly captures the relationship between you, the creator, and the thing you create. Your physical self, your body, your mind, that's just the machine. It's the 3D printer. The real product is the 4-dimensional idea, the system that can live and evolve through time itself.
And this right here is the ultimate goal. Once your idea, your protocol, your logic is fully built and integrated into the world, the printer that made it, that's you, is no longer necessary. The source says we shouldn't mourn that. We should celebrate it because it means the mission was a success. Just let that sink in for a second. This completely flips the script on its head. Instead of being this temporary ghost floating around inside some bigger machine, you become the machine itself, a fundamental force, a puzzle that future generations are forced to engage with and solve. Now that is true persistence.
So I'll leave you with the final question this text poses. Take a hard look at your work, at your goals, at your ambitions. Are you just building a static monument to your own ego that's going to crumble over time? Or are you engineering a dynamic, living mechanism that will outlast you?
Welcome. Today, we are digging into a really powerful concept from the archive. It's all about how to move beyond this fleeting idea of a digital presence and into something far more permanent: systemic immortality. All right, so let's just dive right in by taking on a core belief of our time. It's this idea that if you're visible, if you're famous, you somehow cheat death. The source material we're looking at today argues this is a complete and total illusion. So in this first section, we're going to deconstruct that very illusion. The archive has a term for it: the entropy of the ego. We're going to break down the false promise of permanence in this digital world and really get to the heart of the problem this whole framework is trying to solve. Think about it. We're all told to build a digital presence, right? Post, share, stay relevant. But what are we really building? Well, the archive calls it a data mausoleum. It's this giant monument to our own ego. But the hard truth is, no one's ever going to visit. It's just this massive pile of data we've created, all because we're terrified of being forgotten. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. This slide draws a super sharp line between two ideas we always get mixed up: presence versus persistence. See, the source is really clear here. Just because people can see you doesn't mean you'll last. Presence, that stuff on the left, it needs your constant energy. It needs your attention. But persistence, on the right, that's about embedding your will into a system that just runs itself, a logic that actually governs the future long after you're gone. So here's the crucial insight. All those likes, all those followers, all that online influence you might have, that is not a legacy. The source material is very clinical about this. It calls it a data echo. And just like a real echo, it fades. It disappears the second people stop paying attention. And get this, the more your influence depends on your face, on your voice, the faster it all liquidates once you're out of the picture. Okay, so let's move on. Let's look at how this trap is actually built. And maybe more importantly, what keeps us stuck inside it, performing for an audience day in and day out. This is what's called the mirror trap. You spend years, maybe even decades, becoming this perfect reflection of what the system wants. You feed the algorithm exactly what it wants to see. And you end up with a mountain of data, a perfect digital you. But here's the problem. When the mirror breaks, when you're gone, that reflection vanishes right along with it. Why? Because you left behind 0 instructions for how reality should actually operate. And this quote, wow, it just brilliantly illustrates how brutal and transactional this whole thing is. This constant pressure to stay relevant, it's described as a high cortisol debt that you can never, ever fully repay. To the system, you're not a person. You are a metabolic battery. And the second you stop providing that charge, you're not just forgotten. You are discarded to make room for the next person in line. This often leads to this incredibly stark realization, usually around midlife. You look back at all those years you spent performing, all that influencing, and it hits you. You haven't actually built anything that lasts. All you've done is create a series of temporary chemical states inside other people's heads. Nothing durable, nothing real. Okay, so that's the problem. That's the trap. Now, let's pivot. Let's move from diagnosing the issue to understanding the new way of thinking. This is the big shift. Moving from just doing things to building things that do things for you. You have to stop building a grave and start building a mechanism. And this slide right here is the absolute core revelation of this entire framework. Just look at the contrast. On the left, action. It relies on you, your charisma, your energy. It's a performance, and like the slide says, you're basically just building your own grave. But then, architecture. That's about cold, hard, executable logic. It doesn't need any metabolic input from you. You're not performing anymore. You're building a mechanism designed to exert your will. And that is the goal. It's a total shift in ambition. You stop caring about whether people remember your name, and you start focusing on making your logic inevitable. It's about moving from the story of your life's events to the power of your life's instructions, from the breath to the blueprint. So the big question is, how do we actually do this? How do we make that jump from action to architecture? Well, the source gives us a really clear three-part framework to achieve this kind of systemic immortality, and it's called the Ghost Protocol. But before we get into the steps, it's really important to get the mindset right. This isn't some feel-good philosophy. In the world of the archive, legacy is treated like a science. It's a protocol rooted in cold, hard logic, and it's designed to create a very specific, predictable outcome. And here they are, the 3 stages. If you implement this protocol, this is the key to decoupling your will from your body, to turning your personal wisdom into a force of nature. So let's break each one down. Step 1 is depersonalization. You have to take a hard look at your impact. If your success needs you to be there, your charisma, your daily work, you're not building a legacy, you're building a prison. The goal here is to strip your wisdom of yourself, of your ego, your personality, and just distill it down into cold, executable instructions. And here's the real test. A total stranger has to be able to execute your vision perfectly without ever even knowing your name. Okay, next up, your system has to be self-fueling. It doesn't matter if it's a philosophical framework that solves a permanent human problem or a business that scales on its own. The system has to function as a closed loop. You're not the driver anymore, pushing it forward every single day. You're the engineer who designed the engine that runs all by itself. And the final step is the ultimate stress test. See, the ghost doesn't wait for death to see if its work holds up. You have to intentionally pull yourself out of your system for a while. If the whole architecture holds, if things keep running without your touch, you've done it. You have successfully separated your will from your body. You're not just a person anymore. You've become a law of nature in your own little world. And this brings us to the final state, right? The culmination of the whole ghost protocol. This is what it actually looks like when you've made that transition from being a performer to being an architect. I mean, this is just such a powerful way to reframe your entire life. Your body, your physical existence, it's just the vehicle. It's the 3D printer for a much bigger idea. And your real purpose is to embed that idea so deeply into the world that you, the printer, become totally unnecessary. So this is the end game. By age 45, your physical presence should actually be the least important thing about you. You can be quiet. You can even be absent, but you're still the most powerful ghost in the room. Why? Because your logic, your architecture is what's really running the show. You've basically mastered time itself and escaped your own biological limits. And this all leaves us with one fundamental question, a question this whole framework forces you to ask yourself right now. Is your life's work building a grave, a monument to yourself that will just decay? Or are you building a mechanism, a system that will outlive you and keep executing your will long after you're gone? And the final instruction from the archive, it's a call to action through inaction. Stop performing. Stop chasing the echo. Focus on the quiet, deep work of building. Stay silent. Stay wise.